let's talk some newly announced anime, cause there's quite a few. We got sequels, we got isekai, we got returning series, there's plenty of stuff to be seen here. But what I'm most excited to share is the news of the anime adaptation of the OG isekai, Jobless Reincarnation. But before that, let's first take a look at some of the other new series. First, we have an original anime by PA Works called Epare Ranman, a wild-looking historical piece set in the middle of America at the turn of the 20th century. What we have is an engineer and a samurai who find themselves stranded in America, both with no money to either of their names. So they decide to enter what's called the Trans-America Wild Race, with hopes of winning the prize money and using it to make their way back home, bringing us what's essentially the car version of JoJo Part 7. But judging from the character designs alone, it seems that a good amount of effort has been put into producing what looks like an aesthetically pleasing show. And given that it is a PA Works original, considering their track record, I honestly wouldn't expect anything less. Unfortunately, no release date has been given for it as of yet, so it's likely still a couple seasons away. Next we have the Winter 2020 anime adaptation of the fantasy light novel Infinite Dendogram, a series that is likely more akin to your and my tastes, given that it takes place within a deep dive virtual reality MMORPG, one that actually carries the elements of an MMORPG. Supposedly it's a highly successful game that can perfectly simulate the five senses within a world that offers infinite possibilities, and so far from what I've seen in the trailer, it does look like a pretty open-ended game. Mostly in the sense that it's not limited to basic medieval fantasy elements. Of course they have the usual swords and magic, but it also looks like they have guns and mechs. As for how that possibly balances out in this video game, well, I guess we'll just have to watch and find out. So you can expect the first episode to air this January. Also airing next season is the anime adaptation of the manga Inspector, a rather average-looking anime involving a young girl who became a mediator between the spirit and human world, and a university student who seems to have an affinity for the supernatural. The story will follow this unlikely duo as the relationship grows while dealing with various supernatural occurrences together. Supposedly, the source material is actually pretty well made, so this may be an anime worth checking out next season. The studio that brought us Suka Suka is now bringing us another anime adaptation of a fantasy light novel, this one called Wandering Witch: The Journey of Elena. And after reading up on it, there's a few vibes that I'm getting that makes me want to relate it to Violet Evergarden. Not in the sense that it will be overly emotional, but more because the story is disconnected. What I mean by that is, as we follow this witch travel across the country, the people she encounters and the adventures she takes on are all unique, each bringing their own story and characters to the table, one never connecting with the other, making it sound like the show will be episodic, which personally I'm not too averse to if it's implemented well. Also announced alongside this anime was the adaptation for the light novel I've Been Killing Slimes for 300 Years and Maxed Out My Level. But that comedic fantasy is still rather far away from being done. In the meantime, we have the light novel anime for I Reincarnated into an Otome Game as a Villainess with Only Destruction Flags, coming out in April. This being done by Studio Silverlink, and it will follow the life of an otaku girl who got isekai'd into her favorite otome game, but not as the protagonist, no, the villain, who from what she remembers either ends up dead or exiled no matter what route the main character takes. So based on that, it honestly seems to be an interesting take on a comedic isekai, and personally I'm curious to see where it ends up going next spring. Okay, now let's talk about that highly praised isekai that I mentioned in the title. Is it the best? Well, that's subjective depending on your tastes, but there are a few things to note about this. First is that it's basically the grandfather of all isekai. I wouldn't say it's the first one, but it is the series that is known to have coined many of the typical isekai tropes that we see today, with many referring to it as the isekai of isekais or the isekai savior. Second is that it's one of the few stories that actually shows the reincarnated character as they progress through life in their new fantasy world, giving it a more developed story both with its characters and with its setting. And third is probably the most important and why I'm most intrigued. The anime itself is being created by a studio that has no previous works to its name. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It leaves things open-ended since we have no idea what to expect in terms of production. For all we know, this could be the breakthrough show for a studio that's just now making a name for itself. What we know about them so far is that a production company called Egg Firm, responsible for overseeing shows like Danmachi and SAO, in collaboration with Studio White Fox, who's well known for shows like Steins Gate and ReZero, invested towards this studio named Studio Bind, in order to have them assist with episodes of anime like Karakuri Circus. But now this will be its first solo project, And judging from what we see in the trailer, I think they're doing a pretty damn good job. It's definitely got its own style to it, but the animation itself looks extremely smooth. So what exactly is this show about though? Well, first off, its full name is Jobless Reincarnation. I Will Seriously Try If I Go to Another World. Now, think generic isekai, except with a highly fleshed out plot and characters. No, seriously. A stay-at-home otaku gets killed in a traffic accident and is reincarnated into a fantasy world with above average abilities and some highly skilled mentors to teach him how to use them. Sounds pretty familiar, but it's the way this story is portrayed and developed that makes it such a good series. And I'm honestly very excited to see what this new studio can put forward with such a promising anime. What do you guys think though? Will it be a hit or miss? Let me know in the comments. Other new anime previewed recently include a couple of new Netflix anime productions, the second season for Seven Seeds, and then the polarizing new adaptation for Ghost in the Shell. Polarizing because many people are split on the CG-heavy style and redesign of the Major's character. Personally, I don't really mind, but I'm also not very familiar with the series itself. So if you're someone who's a fan of the Ghost in the Shell franchise, then I'm interested to know what you think of the new style. Next, we have another fantasy light novel anime adaptation called Suppose a Kid from the Last Dungeon Boonies Moved to a Starter Town, bringing us essentially what the title states. A kid from a small village moves to the capital to become a stronger adventurer. And while I'm sure that there's more information on it than that, that's pretty much the most information that I could gather on it. Moving on to some more familiar series, first we have a trailer for the My Hero Academia movie, Heroes Rising, giving us our first look at the main antagonist of this original installment, as well as bringing in what seems to be some elements from the manga that haven't even been shown in the anime yet, which makes me wonder when in the timeline this movie will take place or if it's even going to be canon. Then we got the OVA trailer plus Season 3 announcement for Danmachi. And given the type of series that I know Danmachi to be, seeing that the OVA is just an extended beach episode doesn't surprise me in the least. But what did is the significance of the scene that they showed to tease Season 3. This isn't merely another person to add to Belle's harem. So just know that Season 3 will be significantly better plot-wise than Season 2. Another OVA for a well-known fantasy series is the Frozen Bonds prequel story for Re:Zero, adapting the novel which covers how Amelia and Puck first met, giving us a small tease for Re:Zero before it returns with its Season 2 in early 2020. The popular PA Works anime covering the story of 5 girls as they pursue their dreams in the anime industry is returning next February in the form of a movie. There's nothing too much stated about what the movie will actually be about, but you can go watch the trailer from the link in the description. And finally, a personal favorite series of mine from 2018 is returning with both a recap film and a brand new movie. I guess their gacha game made them enough money to let them bring back the series. And I know what you're thinking, but no, this is not an idol anime. It's a stage girl anime. Big difference. Sure, it might only be one step removed, but it is very, very good, and I highly recommend it for anyone that appreciates good soundtracks and a decent story. Now, as for the new anime announcements, the light novel low-tier character Tomozaki-kun is getting an anime adaptation. Masaki Uesa's newest anime project, called Japan Sinks 2020, will be getting a 10-episode series on Netflix in 2020. The manga Darwin's Game and Hokago Tebo Nishi will be getting anime adaptations next year. Studio Shaft will be returning to animate a new action fantasy called Assault Lily Bouquet. Other recently announced adaptations include the game Shironeko Project Zero Chronicle and the manga Our Last Crusade or Rise of a New World. Kaguya-sama got its second season announced. Netflix revealed an Altered Carbon anime for spring 2020. And lastly, Fate Heaven's Feel Part 3 got a new visual. And that's pretty much all the news that I have for you today. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!